EU leaders vowed to boost security and economic ties with Middle East partners and push for a diplomatic end to the Iran war after talks in Cyprus focusing on the fallout from the conflict. As a fragile truce holds in Iran and Lebanon, the economic impact continues to cause uncertainty, with the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz sending oil prices soaring and crimping supply of jet fuel in Europe.
And the Strait of Hormuz must immediately reopen without restrictions and without tolling, in full respect of international law and the principle of freedom of navigation. This is vital for the entire world.
Israel also agreed to extend the truce in Lebanon, but European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen called for a permanent agreement.
You cannot have stability in the Middle East or the Gulf while Lebanon is in flames. So we call for the respect of Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity. A temporary pause is not enough. We need a permanent path to peace. And on the way, we will continue to support the Lebanese people.
Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara was a key presence at the summit as von der Leyen vowed to boost economic, trade and political ties with Jordan, Egypt, Syria and Gulf nations.
The European Union's failure to sanction Israel over its military action in Gaza and Lebanon weakens the collective credibility and legitimacy to defend Ukraine against Russia's full-scale invasion, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has said on Friday.
Ayer yo defendí esa posición, porque algo que nos está deslegitimando, no solamente de cara al exterior, sino también de cara al interior, a nuestras sociedades, es este doble estándar, esta doble vara de medir que Europa está utilizando en Ucrania y en Oriente Medio.
His warning comes a few days after Spain's renewed push to terminate the EU-Israel Association Agreement in response to the deadly strikes against Lebanon was met with broad opposition from other EU member states. Germany and Italy, which are key to achieving the necessary qualified majority vote in favor of a partial suspension, remain on the fence. Sanchez made the case to his fellow EU leaders during an informal summit in Cyprus, pointing to an internal review by Brussels that found Israel in breach of Article 2 of the Association Agreement, which imposes binding obligations to respect human rights. Israel has long contested the Spanish criticism, arguing its military offenses in Gaza and Lebanon were designed to eliminate the threats posed by Hamas and Hezbollah, respectively, both of which are backed by Iran.
This week saw the lifting of 2 Hungarian vetoes, one on the €90 billion loan to Ukraine and another on the 20th package of sanctions against Russia. In an interview with Euronews on the sidelines of an informal EU summit in Cyprus, EU Foreign Chief Kaja Kallas reflected on the nature of the veto, frequently used by outgoing Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, to the frustration of many European leaders.
We have seen recently that actually, when 26 countries want something and one doesn't, then we do what this one wants to do, not what 26 want to do. So it's not really democracy. And we definitely have to also look into our working methods to be more effective, because in this geopolitical world, we need to be credible, and by that we need to be united and able to make decisions.
New leadership in Hungary could also mean progress in Ukraine's EU accession negotiations.
It's very often projected that what all these countries get when they get to the European Union. But actually, we need to talk about what do we also benefit from these countries joining. A bigger Europe, a stronger Europe in terms of defense, in terms of also a bigger single market that benefits our companies, that makes us more credible geopolitical power in the world. So it is always a geopolitical choice, and we need to work with our public opinion.
But is there a risk that the European Union will not fulfill the big promise that it has made to Ukraine?
I hope it's not the case. We are working for this fulfillment because it is, like I said, we also need Ukraine in Europe to be stronger when it comes to defense, for example. They are the strongest defense force that there is in Europe right now. I mean, and Europe would be stronger also if Ukraine would be with us.
2 people were killed and more than a dozen injured in a Russian strike overnight on the Black Sea port city of Odessa, Ukraine regional authorities said on Friday. The State Emergency Service of Ukraine reported residential buildings and civilian infrastructure were hit, sparking major fires. Authorities also reported a Russian drone also struck a merchant ship sailing under the flag of St. Kitts and Nevis that was heading to the port of Odessa. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the US-based Resume for Ukraine organization, in partnership with the American Coalition for Ukraine, on Wednesday installed a display of 20,000 teddy bears at the National Mall in Washington. The stuffed bears are meant to represent the estimated 20,000 Ukrainian children that have been abducted by Russian forces since the war in Ukraine began in 2022.
Next to me here on this wall, you see teddy bears. They're a symbol of childhood and innocence, a very thing that makes a child feel safe when they're scared. But each of these teddy bears represents a child who has not only had their innocence stolen from them, but their identity.
According to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, some 2,100 abducted children have been returned to their loved ones by the Bring Kids Back UA initiative since 2023.
Russian soldiers who took part in the full-scale invasion of Ukraine should be banned for life from the Schengen area, Estonia's Prime Minister Kristen Michal has told Euronews. The Estonian government argues that the Kremlin's expanded mobilization increases the likelihood that former combatants could threaten the EU even once hostilities are over.
What will those people do? Most of them are criminals, but they have to be treated as heroes inside Russia. So, once again, I would ask everybody that, do you want these guys near to your home? No, you don't. So that's why you have to ban them for life from Schengen.
Estonia has already banned about 1,300 Russian fighters, Michal said. But given the sheer amount of Russian soldiers, the Prime Minister seeks to turn the proposal into an EU-wide policy. Estonia is promoting the Schengen ban since earlier this year and has gained support from other EU countries. The European Council even included the project in its conclusions at the March summit. EU governments are warning that Brussels' attempt to simplify housing regulation through its so-called omnibuses could be backfiring. Concerns grow that new rules may actually slow down urgently needed projects, a letter led by Ireland and backed by 6 other EU countries reveals. The Irish government has asked Economic Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis to rethink plans to accelerate permitting procedures. It stressed that faster approvals are vital to deliver housing and critical infrastructure. Alongside Ireland, Austria, Greece, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia and Slovenia argued that the issue is not over-regulation but poor alignment of EU laws. The request comes as Ireland faces a deepening housing crisis marked by soaring rents, widespread homelessness and chronic supply shortages. The issue extends beyond Ireland. House prices in the EU rose by 53% between 2010 and 2024 and rents by 25%.
Portugal commemorates the 52nd anniversary of April the 25th. On a date marked by democracy and free elections, MEP acknowledge the significance of this revolution, but they warn of a loss of awareness.
Em geral, talvez tenha havido uma perda de consciência das novas gerações que não viveram esse período, inclusivamente nós, não é? De como é viver sem as liberdades que nós damos por garantidas.
Despite the celebrations taking place across Portugal, the generational gap and the inevitable effect of time emerge as explanations for this warning.
as gerações que estão neste momento, enfim, ativas no país, não são gerações que tivessem vivido o 25 de Abril. Portanto, sabem do 25 de Abril por razões históricas, por razões sociais, por razões políticas, mas não viveram o 25 de Abril. O que obviamente é uma situação que vai tender a esbater-se com o correr do tempo.
Even so, there are those who see this moment as a challenge to reinvent and adapt this day to their reality.
Eu diria que para as novas gerações há um desafio muito diferente desse, que é o de transportar para a realidade própria que vivem as novas gerações e para as circunstâncias diferentes de vida que têm estas novas gerações, elementos e referências e valores que são importantes e continuam a ser importantes e particularmente dar a ideia de que nem tudo aquilo que conhecem foi sempre assim.
O 25 de Abril nasceu para ser uma revolução permanente, constante, uma convocação cotidiana.
Among the challenges that remain, poverty stands out as one of the greatest wounds yet to be healed.
O que faria do 25 de Abril um 25 de Abril perfeito era o fim da pobreza.
In 2025, approximately 2.1 million people were at risk of poverty, according to data from the European Anti-Poverty Network. For MEP Catarina Martins, the future depends on today's political choices.
É preciso que as pessoas saibam que estamos a construir com a democracia e na União Europeia um futuro em que os filhos podem viver melhor do que os pais e não esta promessa de retrocesso que tem sido feita.
Between memory and transformation, April the 25th remains a living symbol in the hands of those who lived through it and those who now face the challenge of reinventing it.